Good evening, everybody, and welcome once again to another edition of Nerd Week Live here on YouTube, brought to you by us, the folks at nerdcaliber.com or Nerdcaliber.
And welcome once again.
I am going to turn off the sound. There we go. Not that I don't obviously love hearing my own voice, but not in my headset while I'm trying to pay attention to other things. So I'm Rodney Brown. I'm the editor-in-chief of Nerdcaliber. I am also first-person shooter as a cosplay photographer on the internet, mostly on that Facebook thing, and Instagram as well, and Burley_adopter on Twitter as a tech journalist. I am flying solo tonight. As you can see, there's nobody else around me, just my big bald head. So, and I don't blame DragonCon entirely for that, but pretty much mostly. Between DragonCon prep and DragonCon travel and DragonCon, that's most of where people that you might otherwise see with me here are at the moment. But I can't complain about that because we actually have one of the biggest crowds of coverage of reporters, videographers, photographers, and so on at DragonCon we've ever had. Daphne, hello. Javon goes away. Although I don't agree with the statement about me being pretty ugly. Dennis Pro, hello. Sally Gamer Creepypasta, hello. Kitty Cat, hello. And we are going to get started. So I'm going to give you a warning. Heads up, folks. I know there are people that don't like to see trailers or have trailers discussed because they don't like having this stuff sort of spoiled. And the biggest one, obviously, is the trailer for Star Wars Rise of Skywalker. And that's going to be our last subject. It's the very last thing for the night, and I'll give you plenty of warning in advance. If you want to bail out of the show before then, or at that point, feel free. Not going to hurt me much. A little maybe. But I do understand that there are people who really don't like that sort of thing. And that's absolutely fine by me. So we'll give you plenty of warning. And it is not all just a Disney D23 announcement show, although that's kind of the bulk of it. Oh, thank you. You're also wonderful. Luminous, welcome to the show. Kitty Cat, welcome to the show. And yeah, this is Logitech. Like it. So we're going to start right out of the gate with not any Disney-related property. In fact, DC-related news. And the most wonderful part of that is, I think, this first announcement, and that is, of course, what just jumped on your screen there is Nathan Fillion. Nathan Fillion, it was just announced, is joining the Suicide Squad 2 cast. The image that you're seeing there is actually Nathan Fillion from well, not technically the last time he worked with James Gunn. He was actually one of the big blue prison aliens in the first Guardians of the Galaxy movie. Sort of one of those behind the scenes. If they let you know that it was him after the movie, but it doesn't sound like him, or he's in motion capture, so you have no idea it's him. But that was Slither, a wonderful sort of horror sci-fi movie that James Gunn did earlier on in his career, and that Nathan Fillion was the star of. And Kitty Cat, I agree that I do hope that Suicide Squad 2 is better than the first. But, hey, James Gunn is directing it. So that's got to feel good. Anyway, the news is he's joining the cast. We do not know in what role. I would like to see it. There's just so many Suicide Squad members. That comic book has had so many villains or borderline villains jumping into the various roles that it could be almost anybody. So I'm hoping it's something interesting. It would be interesting actually to see if he wound up playing a villain. Speaking of villain, Sally, how am I? I am well, thank you for asking. Speaking of villain, also announced, and we do know what role he is playing, the comedian Steve Agee is going to be playing King Shark, of all things. Although King Shark is actually a Suicide Squad member, so he's not a villain of the piece. I have no idea who the villain of the piece is going to be. And I think that's hilarious. I can't wait to see what they do with his motion capture physical form. Assuming they do mostly mocap and they don't make him just prosthetic makeup like they did with Killer Croc. Yeah, Kitty Cat, good timing. Yes, Steve Agee will be playing King Shark. Don't know exactly how he's going to look, but it's James Gunn. I imagine it's going to be pretty cool. If you think about it, he made an ambulatory tree that had only one line and a violent, murderous, gun-wielding, not really raccoon. Some of the best emotionally deep characters in the Guardian series. So if anybody can pull off mocap as a director, it's going to be James Gunn. Speaking of which, also, in addition to Steve Agee and Nathan Fillion, there is news out there that Taika Waititi is in talks to be in Suicide Squad 2. This is not a confirmed he is in it like Steve Agee or Nathan Fillion. This is he's in talks. But if he's in talks, and the combination of the brilliant Taika Waititi, What We Do in the Shadows, Thor Ragnarok, and James Gunn, I just can't imagine how insanely fun that's going to be. Don't put those two together, and I think it's possible that they could just become, butt heads and become pure garbage. But I don't think so. I think those two think a lot alike, and I'm really excited to see that. Now we jump over into into the Marvel stuff. News that did come out, in fact, from D23. First thing is we have a date for Black Panther 2. Black Panther 2 is going to be May 6, 2022, which puts it quite a ways out there, unfortunately, 2.5 years away. But they've got to fit all that other stuff in Phase 4 that they're talking about into the Marvel Cinematic Universe leading up to that. And frankly, Marvel has a few other things, problems it has to deal with. There has been, speaking of that, there has been no updates as of a few hours ago to the Sony Disney problem with Spider-Man. They are still on the outs. Spider-Man is still a Sony-only property going forward, and we'll see how that settles out. I said it last week. I'll say it again. The deal will get done. They would have to reboot the entire series at Sony if they were going to continue on, because it was clearly a part of the MCU, and they would have to try to explain how literally no character that Spider-Man has been involved with is now in the series. And that would be a lot easier to do on the MCU side. It would suck, but they could pretty easily write Spider-Man out of the whole thing, because they can't use him. They can't put somebody else in that role. It's Spider-Man is gone to them as of right now. That's not gonna last. Don't worry about it. Another piece of news that came out: rumor, speculation. Then it was confirmed. Then who he was playing, and all rumor. It's finally been pinned down. Kit Harington from Game of Thrones, Jon Snow. He knows nothing except apparently how to play the Black Knight. Brian W. Hello, welcome to the show. Luminous, I'm curious about the Marvel She-Hulk. Ooh, we'll get into that. We'll get into the She-Hulk stuff. Sally, I like all animals. I have neither because I have a fairly small apartment. But I've had cats and dogs all my life. So, thanks for the question. Yes, Kit Harington will be playing Black Knight. The image that's on your screen is, of course, Kit Harington, and then also one of the many, many illustrations of Black Knight with his sword, the Ebony Blade. That is one of the earlier looks for Black Knight. I'm guessing probably late 70s Avengers version. Later on, he's got a helmet that's got these kind of like fin/wing things coming off the side. And he's had various looks and incarnations. The character is named Dane Whitman, if you don't know anything about him. And it goes hand in hand with another announcement that came out. Oh, by the way, he's playing Black Knight in the Eternals, which means he's going up against his former brother, Rob Stark. Not Rob Stark. Yeah, Rob Stark, who, or the actor who plays Rob Stark, who's playing Icarus, who's the sort of lead character of the Eternals, even though he's not the leader of the group. But another announcement that came out was that Gemma Chan, who is in the image that you saw that just came up on the left, that's Gemma Chan as Minerva from the Captain Marvel movie, a role way too small for what Minerva, how important Minerva is to the Captain Marvel comic book series. She will be playing Sersi of the Eternals, spelled S-E-R-S-I, because all their names are kind of spelled differently because comics and Jack Kirby. And Sersi and Dane Whitman, the Black Knight, were lovers, even though the Black Knight is just human and Sersi is an Eternal. Basically a superhuman created by the Celestials, those giant things that you saw in the first Guardians movie wielding the Power Stone. So this is really interesting. I think, somebody correct me out there if I'm wrong, I think this is the first time that Marvel has recast somebody in the MCU in a different role. So Gemma Chan was Minerva in Captain Marvel just this year, and in a couple of years will be Sersi in the Eternals. And I don't think anybody else has done that. Somebody correct me if I am forgetting somebody who has taken on multiple roles in the MCU. We're not counting Chris Evans, who was Johnny Storm. That wasn't MCU, even though he's obviously Captain America, or anybody else who might have been somebody in a different ownership of Marvel Comics properties. Talking just strictly the MCU. So that is going to be very interesting. There'll be a very cool dynamic between the two of them. It'll be very interesting to see how Jon Snow and Robb Stark, as not themselves, interact in the Eternals movie, and how they treat the Black Knight. I mean, the Black Knight is a very swashbuckly-looking kind of character who's also with the Ebony Blade. The Ebony Blade is basically a complete ripoff of Elric of Melniboné's sword from Michael Moorcock, and you know and so the Black Knight is this sort of tragic figure as well, trying to redeem his father's legacy, who was a straight up villain. Black Knight, previous Black Knight, was a bad guy. So looking forward to that. I think that's really cool news coming out of it. So now we're getting on to Disney Plus announcements coming out of D23, and Luminous. Now we're about to start talking about the She-Hulk, and the image that just popped up there is in fact the 3 new live-action, folks, live-action, not animated series that were announced at D23, and those are Moon Knight, the guy in white, if you're not familiar with Marvel Comics characters like that, Ms. Marvel, the one in the middle, and of course She-Hulk. They are somewhat niche characters. She-Hulk has been around the longest. Jennifer Walters is her name. She is a cousin of Bruce Banner, accident, blood transfusion. So she is essentially green all the time, green and jacked all the time. They've brought that up and down. She is now actually almost Hulk-like in the comic books. Like super jacked and not that bright, even though Jennifer Walters is a lawyer, a very highly respected lawyer, prior to the latest iterations. Luminous asks, was James Rhodey Rhodes recast between Iron Man and Iron Man 2? Yes, he was, but they didn't use an actor who had been used in a previous MCU property. They went from Terrence Howard to Don Cheadle, and Don Cheadle had not been in anything MCU prior to that. In this case, Gemma Chan will be Sersi in the Eternals, and just this year had also appeared as Captain Marvel's teammate / enemy Minerva in Captain Marvel. So it's not quite the same thing. Um, and yes, they have recast. I don't know if they've recast any other big characters like Rhodey, but or War Machine if you're not familiar with who James Rhodes is. Moon Knight is Mark Spector. He is insane. He's possessed by the spirit of the Egyptian god Khonshu, and but he also is suffering from multiple personality disorder, um, or schizophrenia. I'm trying to remember which one it is. I can't remember for sure. He is one of the more interesting characters ever created. He had a recent run on his own title that was written initially the first 12 or 15 books by Warren Ellis that has some of the most amazing dialogue-free fight scenes you've ever seen in a comic. It's wonderful sort of individual storylines that don't necessarily build up to a large overarching villain. Really cool. Ms. Marvel won a Hugo Award for a comic book, won a Hugo Award for being one of the most innovative, best written properties in the last few years. Ms. Marvel is Kamala Khan, a Pakistani American living in New Jersey, who idolizes Captain Marvel and bases, when she gets her powers, which we'll have to see how they do this in the series because she's an Inhuman. When she gets her powers, which involves her being able to enlarge herself entirely or any part of her body, so like she can make her fists enormous and beat the snot out of people. She designs her costume on the previous Captain Marvel costume, with the large lightning bolt down the middle. But because she's a Pakistani American teenager, she's going to high school. It is absolutely straight up, completely covered, a wonderfully non-male gaze kind of costume. As written originally in the comic by G. Willow Wilson, it's wonderful characterization. They probably nail a teenager better than almost anything that Marvel has done since probably the very, very original Spider-Man stuff. But they've already named the writer for this series, Bisha K. Ali, who wrote Four Weddings and a Funeral series for Hulu, whereas they haven't named any of the other writers or anything else really about either Moon Knight or She-Hulk, just that they are happening. So that indicates that the Ms. Marvel series is a little bit further down the line than some of these others. No time limit for when any of these will hit Disney Plus has been announced. So it'll happen, but exactly when it'll happen, we don't know. Ariana, hello, welcome to the show. So our next bit of news about Disney Plus Marvel series is with these people. And the announcements are about two people who will be in WandaVision, and that is Randall Park, who played the FBI agent and handler for Scott Lang in the second Ant-Man movie, Ant-Man and the Wasp. That's a scene there. Kat Denning, who will play once again Darcy Lewis in Thor and Thor 2. And that's a scene from Thor 2 there, will also be in WandaVision playing Darcy Lewis. Ariana, you're noticed. And welcome to being 9. And Brady, welcome to being 14. Good for you guys. And in the upcoming Falcon and the Winter Soldier series, Emily Van Camp, who is the one all the way to the right, will be reprising her role as Sharon Carter from Civil War. Well, actually, first from Captain America Winter Soldier, then Civil War. And Endgame and a bunch of other things. I think that's great. I love that they're bringing these people back. I hope that they have decent roles in their various series. It makes a lot of sense to bring Sharon Carter back into the Falcon and Winter Soldier with the return of Daniel Bruhl as Baron Zemo, which was announced a while ago. That makes this, in my mind, a series that's really serious about keeping that sense of Civil War and Winter Soldier of sort of super spy storylines. One of the others, Luminous, glad to hear Kat Dennings will be in more Marvel movies. I recommend her movie Defendor. I haven't seen Defendor, Defendor, according to Luminous. I'll have to check that out. I haven't seen her in anything other than comedies or sort of hip urban twee sort of things. What the heck was the name of it? She was Michael Cera in a movie, Something Infinite Playlist, which is a great New York City urban music scene story that is really cool. I would check it out if you want to see some really great performances there. But other than that, it's all just been sort of silly comedy stuff, and not just for TV series. Moving on to more announcements. So I kind of split these up wrong. I thought I had these wrong. So that first one is Wyatt Russell with his Tommy gun there from the movie Overlord, the Nazi zombie film that came out a couple of years ago, or last year. And Wyatt Russell, which you can kind of tell as soon as I say this, you'll recognize it. That is Goldie Hawn and Kurt Russell's son. So he's sort of royalty, Hollywood royalty out of the gate. He will be playing U.S. agent, who was one of the super soldier attempts, successful to some extent, even though he's kind of nuts, or one of the attempts to recreate the super soldier project or program that created Captain America. And he will also be in Falcon and the Winter Soldier. The other person in this joint image is Kathryn Hahn, and she will be playing a character I don't think has been identified yet in WandaVision, a new character. Kathryn Hahn will join the cast of Scarlet, a new character. Now, we do know this because it was up in the Phase 4 announcement. WandaVision will be coming to us in 2021, as will Winter Soldier, Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Waifu Pennywise, welcome to the show. Glad to have you back. So that's some more D23 announcements about Marvel series. They are doubling down hard on these. They are spending lots of money, getting lots of actors. It is going to be fantastic. And speaking of spending lots of money, a couple of announcements that came out of D23. The first one is that we're going to get, and they've said this before, but we get to see a little bit of it in a teaser sizzle reel, as they call it. The final season 7 of the animated series Attack of the Clones, is going to be on Disney Plus. And you get to see right there, that is a confrontation between Ahsoka and Darth Maul. So, if you're into that, this is going to be wild. The animation, just looking at how sharp that is, which you probably, actually looking at my screen over here, it's showing up pretty clearly, I think is a step above the animation of the previous seasons. It looks super sharp. It may be made to be shown even in 4K. I'm not sure. Waifu, as usual, we're talking about nerd news. Right now, we're into announcements that came out of D23, Disney's big promotional convention event thing. And we're on to the Star Wars stuff that they announced. The other thing is, because we talked about this last week, so I don't have an image for it. They confirmed that Ewan McGregor will be Obi-Wan Kenobi for an upcoming Obi-Wan Kenobi series, and they confirmed a date, or at least a date of when it will start shooting. It will start shooting in 2020. They don't say when. It could be, in the springtime. It could be all the way at the end of the year. But at least we know it is completely confirmed, and they are, in fact, going to be in production sometime this coming year. So, big announcements about Disney Plus and their Star Wars stuff. The next one is the second teaser trailer. This one's actually kind of a full trailer for the Disney Plus series, The Mandalorian, directed by Jon Favreau. It is going to be the launch property, along with a couple other things, but this is one everybody's talking about, when Disney Plus goes live in November. Mandalorian, the story of a Mandalorian mercenary. played by Pablo Pascal, the amazing Pablo Pascal. So I can't wait to see that. And why am I not finding? There we go. There we go. So that's one of the scenes from there. There's Pablo Pascal as the Mandalorian bounty hunter. In what appears to be a shootout, there's like bits of whatever that adobe wall is in front of him, sort of blasting in front of him. Yes, waifu, Star Wars. That's what we're on right now. All of the scenes in here are just absolutely fantastic. You finally get to see Werner Herzog, the brilliant German director Werner Herzog, who has done some acting and almost always plays a villain when he does, is playing a villain in this series. And you finally get to see some of that, and I am so excited for that. He is one of the most chilling, creepy villains. Can't imagine taking direction from him if I'm an actor. I just... you just do what he says because you don't want him to kill you. This made pretty much everybody who's a Star Wars fan that I know, it made their day. In one of the big shootout scenes, there's an IG droid, just like IG-88, one of the bounty hunters that shows up in Empire Strikes Back when the first time you see Boba Fett in that lineup of all the bounty hunters that are that Darth Vader is sending out to get Han Solo and Luke and all the others. There's an IG droid that just goes ham on everybody, gun in both arms and spinning around like a top, just shooting everybody. It's wonderful. That's worth the price of admission for the trailer alone. Not that any of us paid anything for it. But if you haven't seen the trailer and you're looking forward to this series, or even if you're not and you're just interested in it, go watch that trailer on YouTube. It's some of the best action. Production values are insane. This shows you how much money Disney is throwing at this. The production values are as high as any Star Wars movie that's been made. The CG, the practical effects, I apparently commented on the CG of one of the Mandalorian ship moving across a beautiful worldscape. And as it turns out, that was apparently a practical effect, or at least the ship was. The ship was a model. Unbelievable work. Let's go check that out. So now, folks, we're getting to that last one. This is when we start talking about the Rise of Skywalker. If you don't want to see images from the trailer, if you don't want to hear us talking about the trailer, if you don't want to get any of that spoiled, and I know there are people out there that don't, this is your point to jump off. Thank you for coming. Have a good one. We'll see you next week, maybe. But for the rest of you, we're going to start talking about the sizzle reel, because you can't really call it a trailer, for Rise of Skywalker. So we saw all sorts of things in this teaser. We get to see some of the images of the late Carrie Fisher, and it's clear that they modified a few things from a scene that was not used in the Force Awakens, where she's on the forest planet. They changed her hair to closer match the hairstyle that was in The Last Jedi. They apparently changed her outfit. It looks like they CGI'd her robes from The Last Jedi onto her. But it's because it's actually her. They didn't CGI her face. It's definitely her. It's clear. It's wonderful. It's going to be difficult to watch. There's no question about that. But I'm glad that they are going to put that in there as some way to close out that storyline. This scene is apparently on the ruins of the third Death Star, the Star Killer base, as I think they call it. And it's obviously a fight between Kylo and Rey. So, yay. It looks like they're going to once again get their lightsaber on. That's really cool. We get to see a C-3PO that's sitting up with glowing red eyes. And as somebody pointed out in the poster that they put out for him, or for Rise of Skywalker, there is an image of C-3PO with what looks like Rey's staff on his back and Chewbacca's bowcaster weapon in his hands. So there might be a like Spider-Man's instant kill mode. There might be a fighting mode in C-3PO, either that's been buried there or somebody reprograms him. It looks like he might, get his kill on. So that would be cool. Or, there's theories out there that he's like a secret Sith spy, and that's why his eyes turn red, and all sorts of really interesting stuff. We get to see an entire enormous fleet of what are clearly original series, original Empire, not First Order, Star Destroyers. And they appear to be in a lightning storm, so possibly in the atmosphere of a planet. And it's the same planet that I think that is this planet where the Starkiller base crashed, because we see Kylo getting out of, or he's in front of, his special, pointed wing TIE fighter, and lightning crashes behind him as well, and the sky looks the same, and so on. But we're getting into the big reveal here, folks. This is the big reveal at the end, and if you haven't bailed, and this is where you don't want to see it, one final warning. You've had your warning. At the end, we get to see what everybody's calling Dark Rey. This is clearly Rey. It's sharp enough and clear enough that once this comes up on your screen, it's definitely Daisy Ridley. People have noticed she's wearing a cloak that has a hood that is rather similar to the wide hood that Darth Maul had, and that weapon is in fact a double-bladed lightsaber, very similar to what Darth Maul had. It's even a longer central handle, longer blades at either end. They are rough red blades just like Kylo's, and this thing folds in the middle. So right where her hand is, it folds up so that this is dual blades running right next to each other, and then she sort of flips it back and it becomes a single staff-like weapon. Whole lot of speculation about what this means, about whether she fully embraces the dark side, whether it's a vision of herself she sees. I can't imagine she would see herself with a specialized weapon. That seems a little weird. Or if it's just, a path or part of her path along her journey to finding balance in the Force. The movie is called Rise of Skywalker. We don't know that her parentage has anything to do with Skywalker. We do know that Kylo's does. Remember, Kylo is the son of Han Solo and Leia Organa, who is actually Leia Skywalker. So the Rise of Skywalker could very well be a reference to Kylo getting his redemption arc, while at the same time Daisy goes over to the dark side. There's all sorts of speculation about what this means with the reveal of Palpatine's laugh in the last trailer. He narrates parts of this. It's his voice that is the narration behind this trailer. So Palpatine is absolutely a character. What's his connection to Dark Rey or Rey in general? We don't know. So this is a whole bunch of speculation, but it was a gut punch when they showed this. At least to me, it was okay. They're making just as big, bold statements in Rise of Skywalker as they did in Last Jedi. They may not be quite as shocking, and that's par for the course. You have the middle one be the one that does all the shocking stuff and everybody hates, but it doesn't look like they're backing away from anything that was done in Last Jedi. If anything, they may be doubling down on it. And if that double blade isn't doubling down on Rey's attraction to the dark side, I don't know what is. So what do you think, folks? You looking forward to this? I sure am. We only have to wait until December of this year to see it, to find out what, in fact, is really going on here with Rey. At the beginning of the teaser, once they show a whole bunch of stuff from previous movies. once they get to the new stuff, there's a scene where most of your new characters, so Rey, Finn, Poe Dameron, and then with Chewbacca in the back and C-3PO, are all walking up to some sort of alien village in the middle of a festival on this sort of desert-like planet that they're on. So at that point, they're all happy together and still, pretty excited to be fighting against the dark side and the First Order. Something changes clearly because we get that. So I'm looking forward to it very much. I really like the fact that while this may explain an awful lot of stuff that people hated about Last Jedi, it doesn't change what they probably hate about Last Jedi. That those things happened and they are still there, and that's the nature of the universe going forward. And I'm surprised at myself saying this, but I'm applauding J.J. Abrams for doing that, assuming that is in fact what happens, assuming that's where we go with this. So anyway, that's our show. Since it's just me and nobody else is talking, we're done in a little more than half an hour. Thank you all for stopping by. We will see a whole bunch of you. Well, if you're going to Dragon Con, you'll see a bunch of us. You'll see Greg, who's on here quite a bit. You'll see Brian William, which I assume is the Brian W. that was here earlier. You will see, and he will be doing video for us. You'll see Chocolate Ninja Cosplay, Jason, who will be doing video for us. Bent Pick 5, our stalwart, always been at Dragon Con for us. Just a whole bunch of people. Enjoy, have fun. If not, you might see Adam Etheridge around Colossal Con East. He's committed, so he's going to be going. Do I want to talk about Colossal Con? You know what? I'm going to take the last 3 minutes here. I'll go to 8:40 and I'll talk about Colossal Con. So anybody who did jump off, sorry, you're missing all the drama. Colossal Con, which is out in Sandusky, Ohio, and Colossal Con East, which is in Poconos, its newer version, its newer con, are held at water parks. Super popular with cosplayers because of the water parks. They're anime conventions. They are, and a bunch of other cons, are run by a man named Donald Schaffner. That's Donnell, D-O-N-N-E-L-L, who goes lately by the name Donnell Sinclair for some reason. They got a lot of controversy and feedback on social media over the release of a shirt that they had designed that sort of made fun of the fact that a bunch of people got kicked out, or that all the cosplayers got kicked out of the water park at the Kalahari in the last Colossal Con East, which was last September. The next one is coming up in 3 weekends this coming September. And it was just a really dumb design. It was insensitive in so many different ways. It didn't make a lot of sense. And somebody brought it up and said, hey, this is kind of misogynistic. It's kind of stupid. It's kind of insulting to a bunch of different people. And their social media accounts came out and basically dumped all over the people who were criticizing it. And then they had to apologize for that when somebody pointed out that, hey, that's not really the way you address people who have a problem with, some of your stuff that is, frankly misogynistic and pretty insulting to, certain groups. That opened up the floodgates of all sorts of people posting stuff that has been sort of trickling out there for years and has never been concentrated in one spot. Now it got concentrated into, mostly one Twitter account and one Facebook account of awfully misogynistic, bigoted, and in some cases completely dismissive of alleged sexual assault commentary coming from the top management of the conventions. The head of cosplay, a fellow named Chris Gary, and of course Donnell Schaffner himself, to the extent that they fired Chris Gary and replaced him with somebody else. And that wasn't enough for most of the people who were really upset about all this stuff. And ultimately, as of today, at about 2:45 today, Don L. Schaffner announced that he was stepping away from the role of con chair for all Colossal Con events. Colossal Con East, and their cruise that they have done for the last couple of years, Colossal Con Cruise. There are other people who are on those comments that are still in positions at Colossal Con and Colossal Con East. So there are still people who are waiting for more to happen. There are a lot of people out there who think that this isn't enough. Because Don L. Schaffner owns the LLC that owns all Colossal Con properties and these other cons, a lot of them in North Carolina, it's not good enough, that he's still going to profit from all of these cons if people go back to it. So there may be further there may be further shakeups in the top management of this organization. As it stands right now, Colossal Con has a new con chair for all of their properties and a new head of cosplay for all of their properties. And so we'll see where that goes. So I did that in 4 minutes. Not bad. So we're going to call that my Could We Not? Yeah, could we not be just idiotic edgelords running conventions and thinking that you don't need to be a professional person when you're actually running a con professionally and making money off of it? Of course you need to. And of course you shouldn't be that that edgelord who just gets in there and says really horribly offensive stuff about people who who are either associated with your con, related to your con, have been to your con, or even worked for your con. So don't do that, folks. Don't be like those people and have to basically quit your own properties. So that's what happened with Colossal Con. That's my Could We Not for the week. And we will see all of you hopefully next week. In the interim, have a good long weekend. Have a wonderful Labor Day weekend. Everybody enjoy. And we will see, I will see any of you at Granite Con, if you're going, which is also Colossal Con East weekend. So 3 weekends from now. So up in Manchester, New Hampshire, hope to see some of you there. Good night, and bye-bye.